Welcome back to TV5 News at 9. Get out your phone or tablet and scan the QR code on your screen if you want to learn more about our topic today. I'm here at Tri-City Furniture with our friend Kathy Kilborn. And Kathy, you've told me there are many aspects to consider when buying new furniture, such as the support system, the size of the piece, and the comfort. But let's talk about what you see when you first buy a new product, which is the fabric. What do we need to know about upholstery fabric?
Well, there are so many variables in fabric, the content and the weight, along with the colors and the design. So importance here, because all the inside stuff is really important, but if you don't pick the right fabric, you'll have a problem.
Is there a kind of grading system that would help us select a better type?
Well, in imports, which there are many of those out there, those are going to be just a fabric or maybe two. And keep in mind, an import is always designed about price. So they are never looking for a quality fabric. They're just putting in a popular look. And so that is really not going to offer any kind of system. But with American manufacturers, they do have a grading system, and it varies from one manufacturer to another. So you really have to understand their lowest grade to the highest grade. But it's all about the durability and the cost to manufacture. It is not a grading system to say, oh, high grades are going to wear better.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. It's the difference.
Could you talk a little more on the cost to manufacture?
Yes, so that has to do with what the fiber content is and how it's woven. If it's a higher cost fiber, so we have a lot of fabrics today that are protected with stain protections and stuff, so a lot of these lifeguard, but it all enters into the cost of the fabric. And so plain fabrics are going to cost less because they're easier to weave as compared to maybe a stripe or a print. But again, those variables all come back to what the content is. We have cotton and linen and silk and wool and synthetics. There's a lot of variables that all enters into the cost system, and then that makes the grading system. So something that's more expensive to manufacture will be a high grade, not necessarily high durability.
Are there any other features that could vary that pricing?
Yes, so in comparison to just a plain fabric, we're going to have things such as this, which have really unique designs.
I feel that.
These are more expensive to produce, and many of the manufacturers will bring them in for pillows only, because these little shaggy spots are not as good for durability. Was looking at your dress today and I was like, oh, that's a beautiful fabric. But it won't be good to put on your sofa.
This would not be good on a couch, no.
No, because it's looser weave, it sparkles, and those fibers are not going to wear. It's okay to wear it as a dress every so often, but for 7 days a week for the next 15 years?
Would not want to live in this.
Not so good. So fiber content is key. How it's woven. We have some sofa fabrics that are woven. You can actually see the design in the back, but then we have other ones that are printed. And so it's strictly just a print on top of a solid. The other things that might vary would be the design. If you use a stripe or a plaid, it's going to require more yardage to make the repeats match. And so a sofa that normally would take maybe 18 yards, which is kind of common, if you put a stripe or a plaid, it may raise the yardage to 27.
Okay.
Well, that's a lot of difference when you're considering per yard costs. And so we'll find that prints and repeats are going to make a piece more expensive.
So are there any other fabrics besides tweed that would not be good on furniture?
Well, a lot of the content, so like this is linen, and people love the feel of it, but hopefully you can see this, it wrinkles really bad. And you may not like the looks of that. Cotton can have that issue. Cotton can more sun fade. There's a lot of things the synthetics today will wear a lot better. And then the cleanability is key. So silks aren't strong enough. There's just a lot of differences. Wonderful fiber, but not necessarily for your sofa.
Well, anything else we should be considering when we're looking at fabric?
Well, so keep in mind that grading system is important, but a lot of the high durabilities are going to be a little lower grade, and those are typically in the solids. When we've seen, you know, the trend of solids come in, it's because it takes the least amount of yardage and it helps to keep the price down. When I'm looking at a grade here, it might be say on this system 3 or 4. When I go to something like this, the grade is like 27. There is a big difference in fabrics, but keep that in mind. Work with somebody who can help you find a fabric that's good for the durability, the cleanability, doesn't sun fade, but works in your space, because finding one just on the internet, you may not end up with something that will really work.
Well, thank you so much for explaining the differences, all these differences in fabric upholstery and what we should look for when we're shopping.
Yes.
Very important. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Design Time.